This crisis in Ukraine is picking up quickly tonight. Militaries are now mobilizing around the world, and sanctions are hitting Russia right and left after their full-scale attack. I want to give you a live look from Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, tonight. This is where missile strikes were reported about an hour ago. Blasts were heard in several parts of Kyiv. We have not seen any reports of what was targeted tonight or the destructions they may have caused. Now, it's been about 24 hours since those first explosions were heard in cities all across Ukraine. Since then, we've seen a handful of attacks and mid-air strikes. Dozens of people are dead tonight, more than 100 others hurt as people across Ukraine try to flee for safety. Meantime, thousands of U.S. troops landed in Europe today to support NATO allies during this conflict. President Joe Biden said today there are no plans for American soldiers to fight in Ukraine. Instead, they'll be protecting neighboring countries from future Russian aggression. President Biden also announced more sanctions on Moscow today that will severely limit Russia's ability to do business around the world, and it's also going to cut Russia's ability to fund and grow their military. The ultimate goal here, put President Putin in international isolation, which is going to take some time.
We have purposely designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies.
So the world waits for these sanctions to take their toll. Meantime, thousands of people in Ukraine are fearing for their lives. Tonight, I talked with a family from Ukraine, now here in Indiana, after getting out just in time. The invasion, explosions, and air raid sirens are frightening to watch. But imagine what it's like for people who live in Ukraine, people like Ruslan and Olga.
Our hearts are broken for all of the loved ones who are still in Ukraine and they are under attack.
The couple knew trouble was brewing. And since they had visas and connections here in Indiana, they got out of Ukraine. Olga and the kids left in January. Her husband, a pastor, fled this week.
We are so thankful to God that Ruslan got here just a few hours before Russia invaded Ukraine.
Of course, we left a lot of friends, church people, relatives, and it's very difficult for us.
The Antonovas work with the Indianapolis-based Christian organization called Mission to Ukraine.
We provide the services for the kids with disabilities free, and we also work with the ladies in crisis pregnancies.
Dozens of staff in the Ukrainian office were only 13 miles away from one of the attacks. Now the Antonovas are watching the invasion on TV, praying for peace in their homeland.
Your prayers and your support is very needed.
Ultimately, the fear these people are feeling right now doesn't just stop at Ukraine's border. There are lots of people around the world with ties to Ukraine, and now they're impacted by this conflict, and that includes Indiana. Tonight, our Lauren Kostick talked with a couple of Hoosiers holding out hope for their loved ones' safety from thousands of miles away.
All of a sudden, I started seeing all these sentences, statement, it has begun, it has started.
As the president of Indiana University's Ukrainian Studies organization, Natalia says she is heartbroken and also fearful for her mom and brother still in Ukraine.
And she says, what's scary right now at the moment, I don't even hear cars in the street, so it's very quiet. Also, I'm scared because I don't know when it will end.
Being miles away, Natalia is thankful for the support she feels at home.
These words of support are just the only thing that helps me stay hopeful and sane at the moment.
The same hope Ina Prakar is looking for.
It is just, it's so scary. And yeah, and it doesn't make sense.
Ina runs an international adoption agency out of Indianapolis, many times working with families in Ukraine.
To make sure the children are in the safe place, to make sure we keep in touch with adoptive families and update them as much as we can.
In the meantime, Ukrainians hope for peace and an end to this chaos.
There is not much to say besides that it's a worst nightmare.
Russia's attack on Ukraine is prompting massive protests around the world. even in Russia itself. You got to check this video out. This is in Moscow. Hundreds of people there arrested for anti-war protests in Russia. We also saw demonstrations here in the United States, like this huge crowd outside the White House. We've also seen protests at major cities across our country, like New York City, Los Angeles, and Denver. Here in Indiana, there's a Stand With Ukraine rally on IU's Bloomington campus tomorrow. It gets underway at 1 o'clock. And if you'd like to attend, we'll link you to the event page. It's on WTHR.com.